That morning I ironed my shirt. I never iron anything. But it was my daughter Emma's wedding, and for once I wanted to look decent. After 10 years of raising her, supporting her, and paying every bill she ever had, I planned to stand proudly beside her on the biggest day of her life. I didn't expect it to become the biggest humiliation of my life instead. The ceremony was beautiful. I wrote check after check for 6 months to make sure of it. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the dress, everything. I smiled through the photos, shook hands with strangers, and ignored the startup brothers on the groom side who looked at me like I was the hired help. None of it mattered because Emma looked happy. But then we reached the reception check-in table. Everyone ahead of me received elegant gold-trimmed badges that said VIP guest or family table. When I stepped forward, the coordinator slid a plain white badge toward me. Limited access guest? At first I thought it was a mistake. What does this mean? I asked. She didn't even look up. Ceremony and cocktail hour only. No dinner. I waited for anyone to laugh. But the only one smiling was my wife, Susan. It was a tight, guilty smile. I paid for the entire wedding, and somehow I wasn't allowed a seat at the dinner. I scanned the room. Everyone was drinking champagne I funded, sitting at tables I reserved, getting ready to eat plates I financed. And then, on the gift table, I spotted my envelope, my $38,000 gift check. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. I walked straight to that table, picked up my envelope, and held it up for everyone to see. You know what? I don't think you'll be needing this anymore. Conversation stuttered to a halt. People turned to stare. Susan's face drained of all color. Emma froze mid-selfie. "Dad, wait," she called out. But I didn't look back. I walked straight out of those expensive doors, the envelope tucked under my arm like a football. I could hear heels clicking behind me, voices calling my name. But I didn't turn around. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw that badge. Limited access guest. 3 words that perfectly summarized how they'd treated me for years, useful when needed, but invisible otherwise. By morning, my phone had exploded with calls, texts, guilt trips, and excuses. Susan called it a terrible mistake. Emma said I ruined her special day. Her new father-in-law claimed I was overreacting. But by the afternoon, I finally got the truth. Susan had arranged the downgrade herself, and Emma had approved it. It was deliberate, quiet, intentional, all to keep the groom's family at the head table and avoid crowding. There was no real apology, just a mountain of excuses. 2 days later, I remembered something important. My SUV. 8 months earlier, Susan's car died, and I'd loaned her my fully paid-off Honda. She said she'd need it for 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks had turned into 8 months. I'd been paying the insurance, parking and registration, everything, while she drove it around like it was hers. I called a towing company I'd used for years. "Randy," I said, "I need a favor. Can you pick up my SUV from Maple Ridge Apartments? The registration's still under my name." He laughed. "Consider it done." At 9:17 a.m., my phone rang. It was Susan, screaming, "They're towing my car!" "No," I said calmly. "They're towing my car. You're punishing me for the wedding," she yelled. "No, I'm reclaiming what's mine." Her voice cracked. "How am I supposed to get to work?" "Try asking the wedding planner," I said. "She seems to be responsible for making unexpected changes." I hung up and laughed harder than I had in months. The days that followed were quiet. The silence was better than any therapy. Then Susan's parents summoned me for a meeting. They had a whole apology script rehearsed, blaming the wedding planner, calling it a huge misunderstanding, and acting like they weren't part of it at all. I let them talk for 20 minutes. When they were finished, I said, "You know what? Maybe I'll still give Emma the money." Relief washed over their faces. "As a loan," I added. 10 months, 5% interest. "I'll send over the paperwork." Silence, shock, then panic. "Family doesn't charge interest," Susan whispered. "Family doesn't hand out limited access badges," I replied. "So I guess we're all redefining terms now." I walked out before they could argue. That night, I created a professional loan document and emailed it to Emma and her new husband. Brian. Within minutes, Brian replied with the first genuine apology I'd heard since the wedding. He wrote, "What they did to you was wrong? If someone did that to my dad, I'd be furious." For the first time, I felt like someone actually understood. A week later, I received an unexpected call from Nicole, the cousin who helped manage the guest chart. "Mr. Reed, I need to tell you something." She explained everything. Susan had personally emailed the coordinator asking to downgrade my status. Emma had replied, approving it, telling them not to make a big deal. Nicole had the receipts, and she forwarded them to me. I read Emma's message over and over. Approved. Just don't make a big deal about it. My daughter, my only child, had approved excluding me from her own wedding dinner. The last puzzle piece slid into place. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a reflection of how little they valued me. I stopped answering their calls. I left the family group chat. I started focusing on my house, my life, and my own peace. I stained my deck, fixed the broken hinges on the kitchen cabinets, and cleaned out the storage room. I cooked real dinners for myself, had beers with my neighbors, and even started planning a solo vacation. For the first time in decades, my life felt like it was actually mine. On my birthday, I woke up expecting anything from my family. But there was nothing. The only message I got was from my neighbor, Frank. "Happy birthday, buddy. Your deck looks great." And you know what? That was enough. Later that day, as I sat with a pizza and a beer, I opened a notebook and wrote down 2 lists. The first one was titled, "What I Will Not Accept." I wrote, "Disrespect, half apologies, being treated like an option." The second list was titled, "What I Will Accept." I wrote, "Real accountability, mutual respect, peace." I closed the notebook, leaned back, and smiled. For the first time in my life, I wasn't a limited access guest. I was finally the main character of my own story.